Welcome to the Ministry and Podcast, authentic conversations about lament, endurance, and hope. This podcast is a production of the CCL Network.
I served for 27 years in local church ministry in 3 different churches, the last of which I served for 17 years as the lead pastor. My name is Mike Edmisten, and I'm a co-host of Ministry and.
My family served in full-time ministry for the past 13 years. We also help run a nonprofit Christian retreat center. My name is Heather Walton, and I'm also a co-host of Ministry and.
Hey everyone, thanks so much for joining us for this introductory episode of Ministry and. Heather, you and I have already recorded a lot of the interviews that are going to air for this season, so we know what's coming, but it's really exciting to share a little bit about what people are going to experience this season on the podcast.
Yeah, we're excited about the theme in which we're talking about these stories and kind of categorizing these conversations that we're having. We're talking about it in the framework of lament and talking about some of the difficult challenges of ministry life and faithfulness to that. We're talking about endurance, what it looks like to stick with and stay faithful to the calling that you have. And we're talking about it in terms of hope, to just offer hope and encouragement to our listeners while they're listening to these stories and processing alongside of us what it looks like to be a part of ministry life. Mike, I would...
Go ahead.
Mike, I would love to hear, let's just start with your story. Share a little bit with us how those 3 things of lament and endurance and hope have impacted your ministry.
Well, anybody that's been in ministry for any length of time has experienced all of those. And sometimes it feels like the hope tank is running low and the lament tank is running high. And sometimes all you can do is endure. But all those 3 things mesh together. And that's certainly, that is my story to a T. So when I was a teenager, I was, in some ways I was a typical church kid. I grew up in the church. My mom made sure of that. My dad didn't come to Christ till I was in middle school, but my mom was always faithfully made sure we were part of the church. And my youth minister took note that I had some gifts, some abilities that kind of looked like that could work in ministry. And so he encouraged me to enter preaching competitions, which sounds really weird. I know it sounds weird for even me to say that. Like, if you've never experienced that, like, what does that even look like? Well, it looks like exactly what it sounds like. It's teenagers. There were some conventions in Ohio, and then there used to be a national Christian convention, and they had what they called, quote unquote, preacher boy competitions. And so I entered preacher boy competitions. And the first one was at a state level. I lived in Ohio, and I think I placed second in that one, and then entered the following year, and I think I placed first, and I entered the national competition a couple of times, and I think I placed first in both of those. And the thing is, there were Bible college scholarships that were attached to these. And so through those competitions, I actually ended up getting a free ride it was Cincinnati Bible College back in the day. It became Cincinnati Christian University before it closed. So it was kind of like, well, I guess I'm going to go to Bible college because, free school, I'm not going to turn that down. So that was part of the motivation. But that's where the fire for ministry really started to grow. And so, after my freshman year, I did an internship at, a very rural church in Southwest Ohio. And when I mean rural, I mean there are corn and soybean fields everywhere. And then there's just a church building in the middle of nowhere. But I actually ended up staying there 7 years. I did an internship, turned into a weekend ministry, turned into full-time associate ministry after I graduated. And still love those people. Was there 7 years. Then after that, I was a student minister at a church in Indiana for 3 years. And then really felt called to preach. It felt like it was time for that. So I came to a church on the east side of Cincinnati, ended up staying there 17 years. And that's where most of my story was formed, because I always tell people, picture a church where if the question is, what needs to change in this church? And the answer is absolutely everything. That's the church that I walked into. It was so broken. It was so incredibly unhealthy. It was absolutely toxic when I got there. Some of that I didn't know. Some of that I should have recognized through the interview process, but I was young and naive and arrogant. I really thought I would be the knight on the white horse, just ride in and everyone follow me and everything's just going to be awesome. And I wasn't there very long before I realized that is not how this is going to go. There's that old cliche about, young pastors think they're going to change the world and then they almost get fired for changing the bulletin. That actually happened to me. The very first thing I changed was the bulletin, and you would have thought I had performed a ritual sacrifice. I'm like, this is a piece of paper, but it created an absolute firestorm. And I thought, what in the world is going on here? That should have been my clue for how this was going to go. We faced resistance at every turn. And the church was very divided into two camps. One that wanted to see the church change and become healthy, and one that absolutely wanted to hang on to the way things had been done forever. And those two camps went to war. And I don't use that word lightly, but that's absolutely what it was. No bullets were fired, no punches were thrown, but it was an absolute battle. And I did a lot of things wrong through that time, because I started changing things that I saw, like, this is unhealthy, this needs to change. And I didn't address the core issue of leadership. And that really came back to bite me. And so I finally figured out, if we're going to make any headway at all, the leadership's got to be healthy first. If the leadership is unhealthy, the church will never be healthy. So let's start there. And that's when things started to turn around. I started focusing on that, investing in that, looking for new leaders that I could pour into and disciple and help grow. And once the leadership team became healthy, then we could tackle the toxic culture of the church, because I wasn't out there alone anymore. Early on, I remember an elders meeting where I went to the meeting and this elder just read the list of grievances against me in the meeting, and it took like half an hour just to get through the list, and I just had to sit there and take it. But that meeting also turned out to be a turning point, because I actually excused myself from the meeting and walked around the building for a while, trying to calm down. And once I composed myself, I went back in and we talked about, guys, talking to the elders, like, I need you to defend me. I'm defending you, but I need you to come to my defense. And honestly, start deflecting some of this stuff and start shutting it down. And that was one of the small turning points. So we went through a lot of just dealing with so much infighting and all these battles that were being fought. And it finally came to a head when we had a congregational meeting. And those words make my skin crawl to this day, because I remember what those were like. Most stressful thing in the world. But we had a congregational meeting where we were proposing significant changes to the bylaws. And I mean an absolute overhaul of the bylaws to come to a much more biblical way of leading, much more biblical way decisions were made. When I got there, decisions were there were elders, sure, but decisions were made by a steering committee. And who could attend the steering committee? According to the bylaws, anybody that wanted to. I mean, there were no qualifications. And so a group of people who were wholly unqualified could get together and outvote the elders if they wanted to. That's how broken it was. I was like, what planet have I landed on? But it finally came to this congregational meeting. We were doing away with the steering ministry. We were actually doing away with congregational voting on most every decision. And I told the elders going in, we are asking people to vote themselves out of voting. I don't know how this is going to go. So we had the meeting. It was very tense. Tempers were high. But then the vote happened. And I knew, and I told my wife, I told Nikki, I didn't tell the elders, but I think everybody knew, if this doesn't pass, if this doesn't go well, I'm out. Because there's no leadership foundation to build on. It passed by one vote.
Oh, man.
One vote. Yep. It came down to percentage points, and when we did the math, it passed by one single vote. And looking back, I'm like, that the Lord cast that vote. Because after that, the toxic people started jumping ship right and left. There was a mass exodus of people. In fact, this is back when churches used to do like this. If you transfer your membership, we're going to send a letter to your former church so they can remove your name from the roll, all this stuff. That used to be a thing. I went to the mailbox one day and I pulled out a letter from another local church, and it had 15 names of people from our church that had transferred their membership in one day. So I'm like, okay, they had a revival, thanks to us. And it's like, but I looked at all the names and I almost started dancing in the parking lot reading that letter. I was so grateful that because that meant these battles are over. And they really were. So the church was in a much healthier place with leadership. There was a much more unified spirit. And so we could finally, and this was years into my tenure there, we could finally, for the first time, start thinking about an outward-facing mission. Like what the church should have been doing all along, but we were so consumed with this stupid sideways energy, we could finally look forward. And so we really went pedal to the metal on evangelism, on an outward-facing mission. And it was going okay, but we weren't getting a whole lot of traction. And we finally, I finally went to our leaders and were like, guys, I don't know what else we can do, what else we can change. Everything's clicking except for one thing, and that is the building that we are in. And again, it kind of lines up with what I said about the church earlier. Imagine a church building that was built and you wanted to make as many mistakes as you possibly could. That's the building. That's it. They built this building over a live spring, which means there were massive sump pumps. You can't buy these things at Home Depot. Massive sump. Picture pumps on a fire truck, that size. 2 of them in the basement that ran constantly. And if one of them stopped, the basement flooded. It didn't matter if it was the driest drought in July, that live spring. So the basement flooded no less than 40 times during my tenure there. So there's mold everywhere. It's just awful. It was infested with wasps. One day during the middle of the service, a bat fell out of the ceiling and landed on an elder's wife. I'm not kidding. I had just done a baptism and I was backstage taking the waiters off, getting ready to come out and preach. And I heard somebody scream. And my first thought was, wow, the spirit is moving. This is awesome. And I later found out, no, Ozzy Osbourne fell out of the ceiling and landed on Elder's wife. So we're like, we've got to do something about this. Here was the problem. We couldn't afford to do anything because all the people who had left, I was so glad they were gone. But the one thing is they were tithers. And so when they left, so did their money. And I'm like, guys, we certainly can't afford to buy. I don't even know how we can afford to, I don't know what we're going to do. And that's finally, I went to our leaders one night and like, all right, we got a crazy idea. What if we sell the building that we own debt-free and become a portable church and start meeting in the local Holiday Inn? And long story short, that's what we did. And I tell everybody, we did it absolutely backwards. Churches start portable and then buy a building. We had a building and we ditched it to become a portable church that met in a hotel. And later on, we met in an elementary school. But that's when things just went hammer down. And the church was so healthy. It's the healthiest church, the most on-mission church, the most unified church I've ever been a part of in my life. And I'm so grateful for the things that happened, but I'll never forget how hard fought it was to get there. And so in my role now, I served with that church for 17 years. In my role now with the CCL network, a big part of my role is encouraging churches and encouraging pastors. That's why I'm so excited about this podcast, because I've walked through so much stuff. I get it. You know, when I hear the struggles in this church and what this pastor's facing, and I don't know what to do, it's like, okay, I may not have a perfect answer for you, but I can tell you, I get it. You're not crazy. First of all, you're not crazy. And second of all, you're not alone. You know, I get it. And so that's kind of a snapshot of my story and why I'm so excited about what we're going to do with this podcast. So Heather, let me turn the tables.
Yeah. Well, first,
and just go ahead.
Yeah. Let me just say, like, that's such an incredible story of endurance in ministry, of faithfulness to what you've been called to. Just what a testament of the Lord working through you and you allowing yourself to be used by Him to bring about wellness for a group of people, for the body. So thanks for that encouragement. Yeah.
Thank you. And there were so many days where endure is all I did. Mm-hmm. You know, I mean, I've had, younger pastors ask me like, how did that happen? What was the secret? And I'm like, I don't know if you're going to like the answer, but here's the answer. I just didn't quit.
Yep.
Like, it doesn't, on the surface, that doesn't sound like a very spiritual answer, but it's like, well, yeah, but the New Testament talks a whole lot about endurance. There is just something that happens when we persevere. And there are days where that's all I did. I didn't even know what to do that day. I just did it another day. Did it happen on my timetable? No. I mean, no, and not at all. But God really does honor endurance. But there was a lot of lament. There was a lot of lament in that story. It became a story of hope, but if we didn't endure, we would have never gotten to hope. Hope a lot of times lies on the other side of endurance.
Yeah. Yeah. I think there's a Bible verse about that.
I
Your
think
character
so too.
was transformed, led to hope. Yep.
Yes. Well, Heather, you have been in ministry for a really long time. So I'd love for you to share your story with our listeners.
Yeah, so I would say my story begins from the place that I'm sitting now at Central Christian College of the Bible. I attended here as a student and got my degree in Christian counseling and found my spouse, and we got married, and literally the weekend after we got married, we started at a church, and we've been there ever since. And so I know a thing or two about endurance as well. In the time that we've been there, we've seen many things. We've walked through lots of different transitions in other people's roles. We've been there through probably 3 or 4 different youth ministers that have been there. We've been through lots of friendships and walking through life with people and just standing in solidarity with people that are suffering or people that are celebrating. It's just, that's kind of what we do. We just were with people and tried to be present to whatever was going on with the church. I did not have a full-time paid role, but I have served in many areas of ministry alongside my husband. So it's just been a story of slow, steady faithfulness as well. In that time, we have also been gathering with some friends who then started a Christian retreat center. So we have a nonprofit as well. And that is still ongoing. And it's been very, very life-giving to us. It's been just an amazing God story of how that came about and just the opportunities we've had to serve people in that space, to create that space in such a way that people can come and lament, can come and align themselves to the transformative work of the Lord. And I was out there yesterday and got to just bear witness to some beautiful, hard moments of a church staff who are working through the process of uniting and rallying around the things that they want to be known for. So I enjoy the journey with people and just walking through and listening to the narratives that people tell themselves and the stories that they have to share from the endurance that they have as well. Yeah, I'm really, really passionate about spiritual formation. I have my master's degree. And so probably the thing I'm most excited about in this podcast is just to hear those stories and help people process in real time some of those laments, and to be able to offer some encouragement, to ask really good questions, and then to lead people to what that hope can look like. So I am just honored to be a part of this storytelling method where we get to share and be a part of just a much bigger image of the kingdom of God. And it's just been good to listen to the stories that we have been able to share already and will continue to as different seasons come about.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that, because that's been my perspective too, is that it's really easy for our little corner of the kingdom to become the only corner that we really see. And this season really blows that apart. I mean, we are going to feature episodes with, pastors in smaller churches that you may not have heard of, to pastors that, you may know, but we also have episodes with missionary. We have an episode with a missionary that's preparing to serve in a closed country. And even to the point where we'll protect that person's identity and everything because we want them to be safe. But you talk about blowing up your view of the kingdom and just reminding us how big this thing is that we're part of, has been one of my most favorite things. Heather, I feel like this introductory episode leaned a little heavier toward me. I may have talked a little too much, but we are going to hear more of your story and my story as we go through this season with all these different episodes, because one thing about it is all these stories are different, but in the end, ministry is ministry, and there's so many intersecting points. And that's what I want listeners and viewers to to take away is like, again, you're not alone. You're not crazy, and you're not alone. There are people
You might be a little
in the fight
crazy.
with you. Well,
we're
okay.
here with
All right. You're not alone. Well, how about that? Okay,
Yes.
because to stick it out in ministry, I think you do have to be a little crazy, but it's a good crazy. So
It's a kingdom crazy. It's a calling. That's
it. So let's end it with that, because Heather said it better than I could have. Guys, thank you so much for joining us for this introductory episode. Season 1 is going to start in January of 2026. Be sure you keep an eye out for it on all your favorite podcast platforms. Like, subscribe, share. We would love it if you do that. And I just can't wait to start sharing these stories with you. Thanks, everybody.
If you don't want to just listen to us, but you want to see our faces, you can find us on YouTube as well and watch our video recordings and follow along to all the stories that we have for you.
The Ministry and Podcast is a production of the CCL Network, hosted by Mike Edmisten and Heather Walton, produced by Jonathan Burian. The theme song is Rebels by New Alchemist. For more content, you can find us wherever podcasts are found and on YouTube at Ministry and Podcast. That's Ministry, A-N-D, Podcast. If you or someone you know has a story to share, please contact us at ministryand@ccleadership.org. Or you can visit ccl.network for more information about the Christian Church Leadership Network, helping churches and church leaders thrive.